public transit, the province deferring some of that funding. What is your vision for public transit for the city?
Well, first and foremost, obviously the decision by the province to delay the implementation of some elements of Transit City is a great disappointment. And I think that it's very, very obvious that if we're going to have a city that works again, it's necessary to find the wherewithal to make investments again. So I'm doing work, as many others on this panel are, to try and encourage our return to those commitments. We will see progress with the expansion of York University, the line to York University and beyond the York region. It seems very clear that the Shepherd LRT has the funding that it needs to move forward. We have substantial resources that will see new streetcars and new subway cars coming online, but there is uncertainty about some of those additional lines. And we all need to work together to find solutions which can allow those to be able to move forward. I believe that it's necessary to look at creative solutions about the way that we finance our infrastructure. In the province of Ontario, we've seen great progress in the construction of new hospitals, as an example, through the utilization of measures like you and I use to be able to afford the home that we want, and that is called a mortgage. And accordingly, I think that we have to be willing to bring innovative solutions to the fore to get what we need done now rather than delaying the inevitable. I was born in 1964. I grew up at the end of the subway line in Etobicoke, and it's a disgrace, really, that the same infrastructure envisioned and built by our forefathers in the 50s and in the 1960s serves as the substantial backbone for infrastructure that we depend upon today. In this campaign, I will bring forward an integrated transportation plan. Not one that's just about transit, or just about bikes, or just about cars, but one that is designed to reflect the necessity of all of these modes of transport, and for pedestrians to be able to work together in a way that gets our city moving again. And in the meantime, we have to demonstrate to the government of Ontario that we have the wherewithal to build these lines properly, on budget and on time.
Thank you very much, George. Rob Ford.
I'm a door-to-door salesman. It's customer-first attitude. I consult with the public. I consult with my constituents. I consult with the taxpayers. I went to meetings up on Finch Avenue about the streetcar, or the LRT, which is another fancy name for streetcar. I went to the public meetings at Eglinton Avenue. They're totally opposed to it. You do what the boss says. You're the boss. You pay our salary. It's not what we want to do. It's not what we're going to ram down your throat. It's what the City of Toronto wants. All I've heard is complaints about St. Clair's. It was $43 million budgeted for well over $110 million. Completely mismanaged. People do not want to see that happen on Eglinton Avenue. They have spoken loud and clear. They do not want to see that happen on Finch Avenue. So if they don't want it, I don't want it. Just like the wind turbines in Scarborough. They don't want them. So let's start listening to the taxpayers. Let's start listening to you, our boss, who paid our salary. The little person out there is getting hurt in the city because they're getting development rammed down their throat. They're getting streetcars rammed down their throat. The little people call me and say, Rob, there's no sense in coming to council. It's already a done deal. It's not a done deal. It's time to step up to the plate and make these people accountable. You're the boss. On another note, going back to the pennies, because obviously if you don't watch the pennies, the dollars will not take care of themselves. Did you know that every councillor gets a free Metro Pass? Did you know that there's 20,000 free Metro Passes in the city? And the TTC says we don't have money. Well, if everyone was to pay to get on the TTC, there's $25 million in revenue we could be creating. Why does a councillor that makes $100,000 a year, why should we get on the bus for TTC for free? It's absolutely wrong. Every year they voted it down.
Thank you very much, Rob. Joe Pantalone.
Ladies and gentlemen, you know that, I know that, we have a crisis in transportation in Toronto and the Greater Toronto area. The OECD, the Board of Trade, all studies say we're losing $5 billion a year, due to congestion because of productivity loss. If you're stuck in the car, you're not being productive. We all know that the Greater Toronto area increases in population 100,000 additional people per year, which is, over 10 years or 11 years, you get 1 million more of us. So surprise, surprise, there's congestion everywhere. Public transit, Transit City is designed to deal with that by doing high-speed trains. You know, the Eglinton line, for example, starts in Kennedy and Scarborough, will go to the Don Valley, then it goes underground, from the Don Valley essentially to Kiel, and then it goes above ground all the way to the airport. It's like a subway. No, we cannot, frankly, the attitude like Councillor Ford, you know, people don't want streetcars, people don't want, so let's do nothing. You know, doing nothing is not an option. You know, we have a real crisis here, you know, in terms of transportation, quality of life, the environment. Mr. Smitherman, you know, he was the most powerful politician from Toronto in the provincial government for 5 years. He was deputy premier. He wasn't able to deliver. How many subways were constructed the last 5 years? You don't want, and the fact he says I don't want it. The electoral process says we got to stop everything, got to review it. Because, you know, Mr. Smith says, you know, maybe it's a good idea to stop them because we have a second look at it. That's why McGuinty pulled $4 billion out of our table, and we don't have those transit lines under construction. We last one generation in not building anything. This kind of thinking is going to lead us to losing another generation. Now, is that the kind of city that you want, that I want, that our kids want? That's not acceptable. We cannot afford not to build transit city. But with this leadership, that's what's going to happen. With Mayor Pantalone, it'd be completely different. Because we would be knocking on McGuinty's door as forcefully as we can.
I'm delighted to be able to brief on something with both Joe and George. Our transit infrastructure is woefully inadequate. The difference I have with my two colleagues here is that I actually have a plan to put some money on the table to make Toronto a real partner in the discussion. It's not good enough to simply say, well, look, it's the province's share. They've got to come up with the... That old formula also meant that the city has to come up with 25% of capital. I'm the only one with a plan that's not reaching into your pocket that's saying, look we need to take assets. They may be great assets, but they're not as important. They're not as important as an expanded public transit system. $450 million gets us a seat at the table that we're taken seriously. Secondly, we need to show to the province that we have the same standard of high governance that they've put in place with Metrolinx. Not politicians overseeing transportation engineers. Let's put a skills-based board in place that can actually give us direction and give the province confidence that they're dealing with a real partner. And let's be sure that we get beyond this sort of feast or famine of when the province is able to do something or when the feds are able to do something, and make a long-term plan that says, look, we're going to free up that $450 million in debt payment, and we are going to stand on our own 2 feet as a city, and regardless of what the other levels of government do, we're going to invest in transit because we know that it is a critical part of building this city. And that's the kind of city, that's the kind of dreaming that I believe the city of Toronto